James and Ben back here for OddsChecker US. We got another UFC card, this time UFC Vegas 63 going down at the Apex, and let's get right into it. And starting on the main card in the light heavyweight division, we have Dustin Jacoby taking on Khalil Roundtree, and right now on OddsChecker, you can check it out there. Dustin Jacoby, almost a 2-1 favorite here, minus 167. The comeback on Roundtree, plus 150. Ben, who you liking here?
Yeah, this one for me, I think it's interesting because of the line. Initially I was like, oh, maybe I'll take Roundtree. He's looked pretty good in his last few fights, but I think really for me, he's been a little too unpredictable. I mean, when his striking is on, he looks really good, and he lands. He's powerful. I mean, he's been to a lot of knockout wins because he's only been a decision in 2 of his 10 UFC fights. So he's basically swinging all the time, and I feel like he's just too unpredictable with whether he's going to land the knockout or his opponent is. I don't know. I like Jacoby's hands. I mean, when you look at Jacoby's career path lately, it's insane because I mean he was in UFC a long time ago, back in 2012, and then he was in World Series of Fighting. He was in Bellator. He lost all those fights. He didn't look very good. And then he goes to Dana White's Contender Series. He gets in the UFC, and all of a sudden now he looks like amazing. I mean, he's looked really good lately. So I feel like I have to ride him just because I think as of late he's looked like the better fighter. And he's been a lot more consistent lately. He's looked really improved since earlier in his career. So I like Jacoby in this spot. I think it's a pretty good line. It's a little bit of juice, which I don't like, but I think Jacoby gets it done.
Yeah, you pretty much said exactly what I was going to say here too. The thing is, which Khalil Roundtree are we going to get? Are we going to get the guy who absolutely destroyed Eric Anders or Modestas Bukauskas, or are we going to get the Khalil Roundtree who, has lost a few fights? He's just too inconsistent for me. And Jacoby, you're right, has yet to lose since coming back to the UFC. One key thing you forgot there, though, is in between all that MMA stuff with World Series of Fighting and Bellator, he fought in Glory Kickboxing. So what is Roundtree? He is a world-class striker. So is Jacoby. Jacoby actually fought Alex Pereira in kickboxing, who we know will be fighting for the middleweight title next month against Israel Adesanya. Listen, Roundtree's not bringing anything to the table he hasn't seen. Jacoby's been more consistent here. I'm with you. I like Jacoby here at minus 170. I think he gets it done on Saturday. Okay, next fight we're going to look at is in the middleweight division. We've got Tresean Gore taking on Dustin Jacoby's teammate there, Josh Fremd. And right now on OddsChecker, you can see Josh Fremd, the favorite at minus 155. The comeback on Gore, plus 148. Which way you going here?
I like Fremd in this one a lot. They're both looking for their first UFC win. Fremd he wasn't able to get it against Anthony Hernandez, but when you look at that fight, Hernandez was not a good matchup for him. He just absolutely dominated him on the ground. I think he landed 8 takedowns in that fight. Just was not a good matchup for him. This one will be a lot better of a matchup for him, in my opinion. Just because Gore, I don't think he's going to bring him a threat on the ground. I think he landed a takedown in his last fight, but he's just not going to bring that takedown threat to Fremd. This should be on the feet a lot, which I really think gives Fremd a better shot. And you look at kind of their careers. Tresean Gore, he got in the UFC after only a few fights on his record. And when you look at who he's fighting, there's a bunch of guys who are making their pro debuts as well. So just not really the credentials I was looking for. Whereas Fremd, he has a lot better resume, in my opinion. You look at, he fought in LFA for a while the past few years, and he even fought Gregory Rodriguez, who's been doing pretty well in the UFC. Granted, he lost that fight, but he still has the better experience, better resume here. He was fighting guys who were actually really good in LFA, 6-2 record, 7-3 record, 8-2 record. And so he just has better credentials in this fight for me. I think he'll take this one. And neither guy, like I said, has their UFC win yet. So I think Fremd gets it here.
Yeah, again, agreeing with you as well. I guess the only difference that I wanted to point out in this fight, Gore, I know, switching camps. I believe he was at Fortis MMA this camp, which, has Jeff Neal and, Ryan Spann and a lot of really good fighters. So maybe that will help him here. But I don't know. Josh Fremd, I think people forget this was the original fight that was supposed to take place for Gore's last fight. Fremd was injured, so his teammate Cody Brundage took the fight and finished him in the first round. So a lot of familiarity here for Josh Fremd. I think he goes and gets it done. And that Anthony Hernandez fight, we should mention, that was a short notice opportunity for Fremd. Didn't get a full camp. This one he did. I think he goes out there and shines. I think Tresean Gore is one of those borderline UFC guys. I don't think he gets it done here against Josh Fremd. I think Fremd goes out there and takes care of business. So I'm going to go with Josh Fremd to get it done. Okay, next fight in the heavyweight division, we've got Waldo Cortez Acosta taking on Jared Vanderaa. And right now the odds makers have Jared Vanderaa as the underdog at plus 180. Waldo as the favorite at minus 195. Who are you going with here?
Oh man, I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot here because I'm gonna take Vanderaa, and I know he'll probably end up losing. I'm gonna look like an idiot, but I'm gonna do it. I like the odds on him. I mean, you look at who he's fought. And honestly, he's had kind of a tough go. Yeah, he's 1-5 in the UFC. He
Yeah,
fought Sergey Spivak in his debut. He won against Justin Tafa. He should have won that. He lost against Alexander Romanov, who's
really
looked
good.
incredible. Yeah, Andrei Arlovski, even that was a tough fight because he's seen a second wind in the UFC. He's actually looked a little bit better lately, and he was a vet. So I mean, trying to get your second UFC win against a guy like Andrei Arlovski, that's not that easy. And then he goes out and fights, another guy, Alexei Oleinik, who basically submits anything that walks and breathes. And then that Chase Sherman fight, that was a winnable fight. He should have won that one, but I'm willing to back him again here. I think he's just had a really tough go. And Waldo Cortez Acosta, I mean, he's a good striker. He's really athletic, but I don't think he has enough ring experience here. This is going to be his UFC debut. So I think this is a good spot for Jared to really get kind of back on track. If not, he'll probably be cut. So, I mean, this is kind of make or break it for him. And I think that motivation will be enough to get him the win here. And I like the odds on it. I mean, you're getting pretty good odds on him, and he does have a pretty good experience coming to this matchup.
Yeah, this is a classic situation. We've seen this so many times in the UFC where a fighter with not a ton of fights makes his debut off Contender Series and loses. I mean, we've seen this so many times, right? And there is something to be said for UFC jitters or, fighters making their debut. I'm with you here in terms of the odds. Like, I think it's a dog or pass situation from a betting perspective. You're getting Bandera, and again, I know how inconsistent he's been, but you're getting him at plus 165. He's got, 21 fights compared to his opponent who's just got 7. So, I mean, that's a big difference in terms of, bringing things to the table here. I think, as far as the pick goes, I think the UFC wants Waldo to win. Obviously, they're giving a Contender Series guy, a veteran who's on his way out. I think there is, a possibility here for Waldo to win just because, again, hasn't really lost, hasn't taken much damage here. I think there's more potential there. But if you're going to bet this fight, go Jared Bandera for sure. At those odds, I definitely think it's worth a stab. I think it's 50-50 is kind of how I'm looking at it. I got to pick. I'm going to go Waldo. But if you're going to bet, you got to use those odds for Jared. I think I'm definitely going to put a little bit on that. Okay, next fight we're going to look at here is in the welterweight division. We've got Tim Means taking on Max Griffin. And right now the odds makers have Tim Means as the underdog Max Griffin as the favorite, Tim Means as the underdog. Which way are you going here?
Man, this one for me is the toughest on the card. I think they could really go either way. I mean, Tim Means lately when he's been losing, it seems like he's losing by submission. He lost to Kevin Holland by submission. I lost to Daniel Rodriguez by submission, but he had 3 really good fights in between those 2 submission losses, and he looked pretty good in them. All unanimous decision wins. Max Griffin, he is coming off that split decision loss, which probably shouldn't have been a split decision. I don't know. This one's really tough because they're both going to go tit for tat. I feel like the whole fight is just going to be a back and forth striking affair. We're going to get to the end of the 3rd round. I don't really think either guy is going to end it here. I think if anyone did, it would be Max Griffin. But at this point, Max Griffin's 36. Tim Means is 38. But I feel like Griffin has a little bit more power in this matchup, which is why I want to side with him. Means used to have a lot more power, but lately, like I said, it's been all decision victories or submission losses. So with Griffin having what I think should be more power in this matchup, I'll back him. But it's probably a no bet for me just because of how close I feel like it's going to be. When you look at one more thing, when you look at Griffin's losses, a lot of the times those were reach disadvantages. Like in that last one against Neil Magny, he had a 5-inch reach disadvantage, and that kind of played against him, obviously, because usually fighters, when they have like a 5-inch reach disadvantage, makes it a tough fight. But his last 3 losses have all been in fights he's had a reach disadvantage. In this fight, he'll finally it's not a reach advantage, really. It's only 1 inch, but he won't have to deal with that, length that he did have to deal with against Neil Magny. So I think this is a more winnable fight for him. But again, I think it's just going to be too close to call.
Yeah, I see this one a little bit differently. I like Max Griffin a lot here. I think if you look at their last couple of performances, I think, even in that fight against Neil Magny, he was close to finishing Magny in that one. I think Griffin is look pretty fine. The only thing is, I think people forget is Max Griffin's 36. Like, you think of him being a lot younger for whatever reason. Yeah. So there isn't much of an age gap there, but Tim Means, he's still getting it done at his age, but I think this is a fight that Max goes out there and shines. I think he looks great in this one. I might look at that Max Griffin by decision prop because Tim is pretty tough to take out by knockout. So maybe, take a stab at that one. But either way, I think this is Max Griffin's fight to lose. I think he gets it done here in the co-main event on Saturday. So that's what I'm thinking there. All right, main event. This is a very tricky one. We've got Calvin Kattar taking on Arnold Allen. And right now on OddsChecker, we have got Calvin Kattar as, where is he here? Oh, there we go. Calvin Kattar is the underdog. Okay, so interesting because I've seen this line flip all week on certain books.
Yeah.
So Calvin Kattar, the underdog, Allen, the favorite. I've seen, vice versa. So it's, and actually at the time I recorded my show on Monday, the line was dead even. So yeah, just your thoughts. Who do you think wins?
Yeah, man, another tough one. And I mean, the books don't even know what to do. Their lines are flipping. I saw Allen was like minus 130. I think it was Monday, right, when I looked at it. And then, it's flipped back. It's flipped back again. I saw Kattar minus 120 on another one yesterday, I think. So, I mean, the books don't even know where to go here. They both have really solid camps, both have solid striking. And I feel like you really just have to look at the basics of this one. I mean, Kattar has the slight reach and height advantage here. Allen's 6 years younger, but Cater's kind of in his prime right now. He's that stand and trade type of striker. I don't know. It's really tough. Allen's more accurate for sure, and he's looked really excellent. 9-0 in the UFC. You can't really say anything bad against that. I mean, he hasn't lost yet in the UFC, so this is a perfect spot for him to really shine and become that number one contender. But I don't know. I feel like if Allen is going to win this fight, it's going to be maybe by landing takedowns. But then you look on Kattar's side, and he has a 91% takedown defense, so you can't even necessarily say he can win in that fashion. So it's really tough to see. Honestly, in my opinion, either guy's path to victory. I feel like it's just going to be standing and trading the whole fight, which kind of seems like Kattar's, that's kind of his kind of fight. So I feel like for that sense, I'd take him. But if Allen is able to land a takedown and steal a round or two, it could be his fight. Now, this is Allen's first 5-round main event, and Kattar's been in them left and right. I think this is his fifth, I want to say, fifth or sixth.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah, he's had a lot of main events.
Yeah, he's had a lot of main events. So that is a good experience bringing into this fight because he's used to going to that 4th and 5th round. He's been to a decision in a lot of those. Whereas Allen, that 4th and 5th round, what's it going to look like? So I think there's a lot of different narratives in this fight, which makes it tough. But I'm going to take Calvin Kattar just because of that 5-round experience. But I really wouldn't be surprised if Allen is able to land maybe a few takedowns and steal a decision here.
Yeah, this is an interesting one to me because, again, Arnold Allen's best win was probably in his last fight against Dan Hooker. And you could almost make the argument that Dan Hooker had a really tough weight cut and that he was more susceptible to getting knocked out there. I mean, it was an A+ performance from Allen. I mean, it definitely moved him up the needle a little bit. But you look at who Calvin Kattar's fought. That's what kind of gets me in this fight, right? You look at some of the wins. Chikaze, you've got Dan Ige. He's been in there with Max Holloway. The Josh Emmett fight, a lot of people felt like he won that fight. I mean, Kattar technically coming off a loss, but some people felt like he did enough to take out Josh Emmett, who many feel should be fighting for the title right now. So to me, there's a lot of reasons to like Kattar here from what we've seen, but there's that unknown with Allen. Like, is he that good? I mean, we ran into this last week with Islam Makhachev, where obviously he is very good. He got the win, right? So it's one of those things where we don't really know 100%. And the other thing with Allen, he hasn't fought that much. If you look at his UFC career, he fights like once a year, just not as active as Kattar. Kattar did have a long layoff after the Holloway fight, but overall, if you look at his UFC career, he's been far more active than Allen has. I think Calvin Kattar wins the decision here. I think that's likely what happens. Kattar, not much of a finisher. Some of the wins that he does have by stoppage are against older, aging veterans like Jeremy Stevens, Ricardo Lamas. Allen is not that. He's a young up-and-comer looking to prove himself. Could this be the fight where Arnold Allen, Calvin Kattar's chin gives out and Allen knocks him out? It could happen. Maybe there is that threat of that as well. Maybe you look at the Allen by KO prop, kind of like what we talked about last week with some of the props there, with Allen maybe getting it done. But I think the likely scenario here is Calvin Kattar winning a decision. I just think with his experience, who he's fought, we have more evidence of him, performing well in a 5-round fight. With Arnold Allen, like I said, he's never done 5 rounds. This is a big step up from Dan Hooker, who's not even in the division anymore. I got to go Calvin Kattar by decision. If I'm getting him a plus money, I'll take that. But I think Kattar by decision is also worth the stab here, just to have a quick look at how this could go. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Allen, taking place this Saturday at the Apex. For myself, for Ben, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week. And thanks so much for joining in.